Introducing the Poet Life Podcast. Go check it out today on your favorite platforms, including iTunes, Apple Music, and the website, thepoetlife.com.
Peace, what's going on?
Find a way.
Into the Poet Life Podcast Season 2, the relaunch featuring myself, my good brother Christoph Jenkins. Tonight we have a phenomenal guest. We're the first African-American female Poet Laureate of Alexandria, Virginia. Her name is KaNikki Jakarta. Under her belt, she has 5 books, including one that just came out, Alabama girl, Virginia woman. Pardon. So we have her here coming as a host, a featured poet, a spotlight poet, a teacher, an educator, a writer, as well as someone who's trying to bring unity to a diverse community of writers and poets. Once again, we have KaNikki Jakarta. Welcome to the show.
Woo. Thank you so much. Can I take you around?
Welcome.
Like, right? Like you introduce me all the time.
Why do you think I have him going first? He's awesome. J. Rodney, jump in there, man. Go for it.
So let's go ahead and get right into it. So I have a few questions. Starting off, like I wanna just honor you for what you brought to the community. First and foremost, you being first African American poet laureate in Alexandria, Virginia. Just thinking about the times I've been to your event in Sterlington, and I've been seeing you host, and just like it was years ago, but now to see that you're the poet laureate, I'm thinking like, how do we get from here to there? But I know the story that we want to get into. So my first question is just like growing up and being around poetry. I've read and I've seen that your parents exposed you to it at an early age, like very early, or being in the womb early. You might speak on that a little bit for us.
Well, apparently my mother in the womb, my mother always loved poetry. She read a lot of Nikki Giovanni poetry when I was in her womb back in the 70s, right? So when she was getting ready to birth me and she was thinking about my name, she thought I should name her Nikki Giovanni because I love this poet and what she stands for. But then she thought at the last minute I should probably give her her own name, but I did still want to honor Nikki Giovanni, so she named me KaNikki instead. So that's where my name came from.
Nice.
So Nikki Giovanni is actually my namesake, right? So it's been great. I actually have been to a lot of her readings. But last year or year before last, I think it was last year, I actually had a chance to talk to her. Like I've been in the audience, but not a personal conversation. So I knew the person, one of the people who put the event together. So she brought me the microphones to ask her some questions. And then when it was over, she rushed me in the back so I can talk to her privately, which was great. And I got to tell her, that I was named after her and talk to her about longevity and, how do you stay relevant? Because I'm reading your poetry now and my mother was reading your poetry in the 70s.
Right.
So how do you stay relevant for all of this time? And she was like, you just got to stick around. Like it's just all about keep going. Like, don't stop. I mean, this is how you make it for decades and decades. It's not even that deep. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Don't stop.
And she was like, just try to let poetry work for you as well. You know what I mean? Because we've done poetry for the love all the time. She spoke about how when she went to teach and be a professor, she was thinking, oh, I'm going to get a check like every month. Like this doesn't, this hasn't been her experience, she's getting gig to gig. Like we're getting gig to gig, So that was really inspiring. But my dad was also, he was a Maya Angelou fan. He was a Dr. Seuss fan. When I was growing up, my dad, his first name is James, but he goes by Sam. And he would be in the kitchen, talking about, I do not like green eggs and ham. Right? So I didn't know who Dr. Seuss was, or that he wasn't, his name is Sam. So I'm thinking this is something that he made up. And then I remember for Christmas getting a Dr. Seuss book, getting the green eggs and ham. And, my little mind was thinking, oh, so my dad has a pen name. He's Dr. Seuss. I didn't even know that this was a thing. So, yeah. And my dad, he recited a lot of Maya Angelou. Once I got to be a teenager and started reading more poetry, I was like, wait a minute. This is Maya Angelou. And he was like, well, I figured at one point, if you're a poet, you need to read some poets. And at one point you figure it out, right? But I was blessed to be able to go to a private Christian school when I was in elementary school. My mother sent me there, and they had poetry for a class. This is how I got started writing in poetry. I like a lot of rhymey poetry too, and I would be in a poetry contest. They had contests in the class. So if you won in the class, then you competed for the school. If you won in the school, then you competed with other schools. So this is like the nationals, right? So and I was winning these things. You know, in 3rd and 4th grade, I was winning. So when I got to my end of my 4th grade year, this is like, okay, you know about poetry slam, poetry competition, and random people judging you. But this poetry contest, they were more like, you have a big book of poetry. You pick a poem, you got 5 people there, and they're reading the poem while you're reciting the poem, making sure you said every word, making sure you paused that commas. You know, it was real, it was serious, right? So one of the young ladies, when we got to the end, she and I had the same poem, and she won. So I was like, how did she win? And so my dad said, she recited the poem better than you did. And I said, well, next year I'll write my own poem. And that's how it all began. That was it. That's my beginning right there.
Yeah.
So that's how I started writing for myself.
That's
wow.
big. From that experience alone, that was kind of like a beginning key point for you, I guess you can say, correct? Okay. So we get through that, and now you get to the next phase of your writing where you're starting to experience different things now, and you're writing for yourself, you're writing your own thoughts. What was the experience of first introducing that to the world? You know, from going from the recitation of others to going to your own work.
Well, you know, I was young. We talking, you know, elementary. So, you know, my first writings was about God and trees and nature. You know, my parents, you know, I love my brother. I love my parents. You know, this is what I'm writing about. Then, you know, into my teenage years, then I'm like, you know, I'm writing about my relationships. So now I'm like, I love him. He loves me. Why he don't love me no more? You know what I'm saying? This is my extent of writing, right? So, and I got to a point in life, and I always tell poets this too when they say they have writer's block. So I got to a point where I wasn't writing anything. And so my dad was like, you know, what are you writing about? I'm like, nothing. I don't have anything to write about. He was like, okay, if you don't have anything to write about, that means you need to read more or you need to live more, because you've written to the end of your extent of life. You know what I'm saying? This is cool.
Father's a wise man.
You don't have anything else to write about. So you need to open up some books and start reading, and you need to get more life, like live, travel, do some things. And then when you'll have more things to write about. So
yeah. You spoke about letting poetry work for you. And that brings me to, like, I hear that when it comes to money, like letting money work for you, right? Don't work for money, let it work for you. And that's in the investment realm of things. And so how did you learn to let poetry work for you?
When you marry a full-time poet, right? So you get into a relationship with a full-time poet. This is
who's your husband? Who's your husband?
My husband is 13 of Nazareth. We met in 2002, and meeting him, this is, you know, I'm going to travel, and I'm going to do poetry for a living, right? This is how I'm going to live. All right. But you know, I always say that he's such a free spirit, right? So anybody asking him to do whatever, you know, he's like, I'll do that, right? But I am not that way. I am, okay, we need to make a plan, right? I'm a more people person, you know. I said, okay, if we're going to do poetry for a living, then let me go back to school. Let me get my marketing degree, right? So I can figure out how to market this thing, because we have we did a tour together, but we found out quickly doing a tour together was not lucrative, because they have they have space for 2 features. They have money for one person, right? So that's not
there you go. Yes.
You need to get us separately. Right? And then it's not just about poets, you know, doing it for the love is great, you know, and I still do poetry for the love. I still do a lot of free things. But then you got to start thinking about, you know, when you're talking about the business of poetry, like, how is this going to benefit me? Being that if you do a show, say if it's a show for charity, right? if I'm going to do your show and I'm doing your show for charity, I need you to introduce me to all of your sponsors. And I mean a one-on-one introduction, right? So here's my card. So if you need a poet next time, here's, my information. You've already seen me perform. Here's my card. Let's talk about it later, right? So then you got all of these. Give me your card so we can talk about what else I can do for you,
Yes.
So you got to figure out how is it benefiting to you. It's not always about the money. Sometimes it's about the connections of it all. Right then, like if I'm doing a small whatever show, but it's going to lead me to all of these different sponsors who are going to need poetry later, then that's a win, right?
Investment.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good because that's kind of speaking to the next.
And you have a book.
You say what, Christoph?
Hold on 1 second, Jay Riley. So you have a book as well, meaning you have merch, you have product, right? So can I also get a table?
Right.
If this is going to be where you don't have an honorarium, and okay, I understand. I love the cause. But can I get a table? Can I connect with your sponsors and all of that? So that's how you make poetry work for you in other ways as well. It's good.
And let me also help you to something else, like schools, where schools are concerned, right? I did Carlos Rosario School 2 years ago, I want to say, and so they wanted me to teach a workshop. So they wanted me to teach two workshops back to back, right? They were like, we really don't have money to pay you. We can give you $150 for both of those workshops. Okay. But I also learned that when schools are involved, there are different budgets. They have speaker budgets and they have budget for product. That's a different budget.
Got it.
So I said, I have books that I'm going to be teaching this workshop from. So can you purchase books? So they only paid me $150 to do 2 workshops, but they bought 50 books. 25 people in the class. So when you're going to these places, you can say, do you have product? They call it different things, the merchandise budget, product that you can buy. So sometimes it's not even about, they may not have a speaker budget, but they might buy 200 books. Then it's a win.
Yeah. So what you've done is learn how to not just say, okay, great, okay, but you've also learned how to negotiate. Negotiate your terms.
Right.
That's good. That's important. That's important. Go ahead, Jay Ryder. You had something.
No, I was thinking about like how to have a career or a livable wage as a poet. Going out and trying to have your own shows is right now especially, how can poets even earn a livable wage in this transition period we're kind of in right now?
Well, because the pandemic came right after moving into my second year as Poet Laureate, right? So the first year of Poet Laureate, I took the title on April the 1st in 2019, right? So I had to first settle into this, and I'm thinking, I'm really thinking, I thought about being the Poet Laureate. I wanted to be the Poet Laureate, but not even thinking about that I am the first Black Poet Laureate. You know what I'm saying? So this holds an esteem, and it means so much to people. Like, you're the first African-American Poet Laureate. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't even dawn on me till probably about 3 or 4 months in, that you've just made history. It didn't even, I was thinking I should be the Poet Laureate 2 other times before I got this one, right? So it's not like I applied for Poet Laureate one time and bam, I was the Poet Laureate. No, sir, it didn't happen like that. I had to apply third time is the charm. You know what I mean? So I had to figure out like what I wanted to do for the community and who I am. And what am I going to offer to this position? Because this is something that you have to tell the board. So once I decide, I'm ready for this. Okay, now that I have it, now what? So like I said, 3 months in is when I really figured out, this is a history moment. This is just not, I'm the Poet Laureate, right? So now I have to figure out what am I going to do for this next term. So I'm really settling into it. I said yes to everything. I have an assistant. I had her before. And I don't book my own shows, and the reason I don't is because I'd overbook, right? So my first month after I got the position, everybody who asked me to do anything, I said yes. So she sent me my calendar for April and May and said, you have 3 days in April that you don't have anything to do. 3. When are you gonna sleep? She was like, this, the reason that you hired me, don't pay me and then book your own stuff. This is the reason, because I can say no, I have to put you some time in here, right? So then now I'm making a plan. First, I need to rest because I booked my April and May. So now I need to rest and, determine what I'm going to do for these next couple of months or whatever. So then when 2020 came, I'm hitting the ground running. I'm like, okay, I have all this stuff. In April is Poetry Month. March is National Women's Month. And I'm doing all of these things. But then when April hit, everything got canceled. So then I had all of this money that was supposed to happen that wasn't going to happen, right? So then I said, okay, well, we're going to be on some live platforms. We're going to get it together. Let me get on YouTube. YouTube is your friend. Let me learn how, because I had a Zoom account, but let me buy, I had the free Zoom. Let me buy a Zoom account. Because the workshops that I did, what can we do virtually? How can we move some of these things virtual? What can we do together? And I was like, I'm hitting the ground running on that. Like I booked a lot other stuff. Well, I can't do that, but let's do this instead. Do y'all want to do this? Do y'all want to pay for this? And that worked. I mean, they were like, well, we can still pay you to do it. You could just have a live audience. And that worked. I was supposed to do like a poetry festival, but I did a live Facebook get to know your poet laureate, had 300 and some views. And they were like, well, the city will pay you for that. I mean, you just gotta innovate. You gotta, like my grandmother said, look, you gotta know how to move. I'm from Mobile, Alabama, where when my mother was little, they still had black and white bathrooms. You understand what I'm saying? My grandmother said, you got to know how to maneuver and move. My husband said, you gotta be like water. When water get to flowing, it don't stop. If something is in its way, it go over, it go around. You know what I'm saying? You got to know how to move out here.
Listen.
Yes.
You got it. Let me ask you, first of all, before I go on a tangent, I definitely want to have both you and your husband on, but I also want to have him on separately as well because he has his own journey. But let me ask you, because there are some people, and for a long time myself, did not know what a poet laureate is.
Right.
What is that? And
a lot of people don't know what it is. They're like, I'm a poet laureate. They're like, okay. Some people will ask, some people be like, I don't really know.
Right. Sounds prestigious.
Whatever city, state, county you are their poet laureate. You are their poet for the city, right? So if anything happens, political, anything happens, you are the poet who represents the city, the state, or whoever you are. So I like to say, a poet laureate is like a mayor for poetry.
That's what I thought it was. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's
okay. So in those instances or those occasions or events, they asked you to write something in relation to that event or theme. Nice. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm learning. Okay, good. All right. So, how long is the term?
It's 3 years.
3 years, and you're in your first year.
I'm in my second year. I just completed my second year in April.
Okay, got you. Okay, and how's it going?
It's going great. I mean, like I said, it was a big curveball thrown because of the pandemic entering into my second year. Here is a pandemic, but like I said, you got to keep it moving. You got to. I just changed my platforms, and we're going to be virtual.
Gotcha.
However,
so what are the steps to becoming a poet laureate, and do all cities and states have them? And if they, I'm about to ask you 10 questions in one. But can you petition to start a position in your city or state if they don't have one?
You can, and I think DC just changed their rule. Some states have poet laureates. When you are appointed the poet laureate, you are a poet laureate till you die.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that was the rules for DC, but I think they just changed it. Don't quote me on that, but I think that they did. Every city, state, and county, they have different criteria or whatever that you need to do. For the city that I am in, they have you submit poetry anonymously, 10 poems. They give those poems to a board, and they read it. And the poems that they like the best, whoever follows upon that top of the poems, then they call that person in for an interview. You write a statement about why you think you should be poet laureate or what you can do for the city. So they read your statement, they bring you in, they ask you a slew of questions. There's some people that ask you a bunch of questions, and then they decide, if they want to bring you back for a second interview. So I went back for my second round, and then they had a different criteria for that. They had a poem that they wanted you to write about diversity. Then they wanted to know, what will you do for your first 90 days? But like I always said, I was going to do this stuff anyway. So the things so I think one of the things that set me apart was people were talking about what they were going to do. My flyers and everything are already printed for the next 90 days.
Already in the works.
My press kit, this is happening, whether it's just KaNikki Day or a KaNikki Jakarta Poet Laureate. It's going to happen anyway. You know what I mean?
And it will behoove you to go ahead and put you all's city name onto what I'm doing.
I was going to do it. So, but what I have learned is titles bring you more prestige, right? I'm still the same person. I've been presenting events in this area since 2001, right?
Yeah.
19 years later. But in the beginning, I've always been living in Virginia. But the poetry, when I moved here, I lived in Southern Virginia first. I lived in the 757 area. And when I moved here, poetry was in DC. I just went where the poetry was. So I just added on to DC poetry, right? But I never thought about bringing the poetry to VA. So I realized that, even trying to apply previously, all of the events that I was doing was not for the city that I lived in. So I had to regroup and say, hey, let me move my poetry. Let me write about the city. Let me move my events to the city where I am. I think that's also one of the things. Like, it's not just what are you going to do for the city. If I live in this city, but I take my poetry, I take my events to another city, why do we want you?
Right.
So, yeah, that was one of the things I had to do.
I'm glad you brought up something. You brought up writing with a purpose. Mm-hmm. And we know poets love to write and write about their feelings and that's what you're supposed to do, right? But when it comes to business, would you also say that it is also important to analyze the playing field? What's happening in the world right now? Where am I? Let me also have some pieces, some poems in my portfolio, in my archive that is marketable also. Mm-hmm. Because I have conversations with poets and it's almost an argument at times. I don't think you should do that. Poetry is for, and I think that's the poetry community side of things. And in the poetry industry kind of bumps heads, right? But then I have to ask the question, what's your intent? Do you want to do this full time? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to do it for a hobby? Or do you just want to do it for an open mic? If that's the case, great. But if you want to do this as a career, you have to be strategic, right?
Right.
And that's what I hear you saying. When you talked about you had events and opportunities in DC, but I live in Virginia. Let me honor and show pride to my city. Mm-hmm. And look, that's what rappers do.
Right.
That's what Wale does, and I'm sure that affords him opportunities to come back to the city and represent for whatever occasion, event, festival, whatever. Hey, do that song, where you speak about DC.
Right.
You know, so I wanted to bring that up, and I'm glad you did as well. Jay Rodney, you had something. Look like you.
Let me add to that before you ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can always, if open mic is home, right? It's
sure.
like family, it's home, it's community, it's practice.
Yes.
Okay. So you can always go to the open mic. It's like going home. If you want to do this for a career, you got to leave home. You have to leave, right? So of course you're gonna write about. If you say you want to do XYZ, like I'm like, are you prepared for this? Right? You have to. My motto last year was participate in your own blessing. Right? We all know the scripture: faith without works is dead. If you say I want to perform in these places, do you already have pieces for these places? You should already have the poem. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You should be writing those poems for the places that you want to go. Then you have to think outside of the open mic, right? So you have to, for me, in order for you to get all of the money as the poet, then you have to be the only poet. If they have a program and they have a singer, you know, they have a speaker, you want to be the poet, not at the open mic, but you want to, you know, market yourself to be, let me be your poet for this event, right?
Good.
So
Good.
you do have to think about the business of it all. And I think a lot of times people use poetry is therapeutic, but not therapy.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's where we get it a little twisted, because everybody wants to write about their feelings and how they, and that's great, but is that what you're gonna recite to the Obama?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's kind of what I want to ask you too, because thinking about just that process, I know a lot of spoken word artists, they're used to just free verse. They're not really thinking about technical skill or, you know, punctuation or even like grammar and, you know, certain marks like that. So when it comes to being in these spaces where they're actually reading your work and looking at what you're saying, and I'm sure they're probably judging for the commas and semicolons and colons and the pauses and how it goes, the sentence flow. What would be your words to advocate more poets to actually take the literacy side, the technical side of writing more seriously, along with the spoken word skills?
Well, if you want to, like Christoph was saying, if you want to be an open mic poet, then so be it. Because I've helped people publish, and I mean some awesome performers, okay? And then reading their work, I'm like, you got to capitalize. You got to, exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, and I'm like, but when you hear them speak, it's different. Being a writer and a performer are two different things. So, and I always say I'm a writer first. I'm always a writer first. You know, but I grew up writing. That's what I didn't grow up performing. When you have these people, they come to poetry as a performance poet, as a spoken word artist. They don't come as a writer. You know what I mean? So you're writing for the stage. You're not writing for the page, kind of thing. But the page is what pays.
The page is what pays.
Oh man, you coming with these quotables? Hold on, man.
If you look, like all of these songs, you know, my dad. When I say my dad was a G, he taught me a lot of things. Whoever wrote it, that's who gets the money.
You got it.
Who said it? It's who wrote it. You know, and he told me that a long time ago. And I went to school for computer science. I went to Alabama State, and like I've said, I've always had a passion for writing, but this is not something that I thought I could get paid to do. And I remember in my literature class, the first day of class, the teacher was asking about some type of sentence, and I read a sentence from the book. And she said, well, that's good. My last name was Williams at the time. She's like, that's good, Miss Williams, but next time pick a sentence that's not in the book. So I was like, how does she know that it was in the book? Because you know how the college books look. They big, thick. You know, how does she know that one sentence was in the book? So later on, I really wasn't good in math. So I used to take tutoring classes for math, right? And I used to tutor people for literature writing, teaching them how to write sentences, paragraphs, essays, and all of that. And I gave it away for free because I was there on a scholarship. So this was like, I can help people learn how to do this. I'll do this, teach people for free. So I would volunteer to do that. And my teacher said, you know, she was like, why don't you be a writer? She was like, what's your major? Why don't you be a writer? And I was like, because you can't get paid for writing. And she turned over the book. I'm sitting in a desk. She opened the book and pointed to her name. She wrote the book. Yeah. I was like, oh.
So that's how she knew what the sentence and everything. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't put that together. Okay. I know that sentence because I wrote it. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
The page is what plays. The page is what pays. When we get into like marketing and advertising self-published books, oftentimes I hear poets, even like myself as writers, like we talk about like, how do we get this stuff out there? You know, how do we get people to actually get the copy? You know, people want to support it and like it and comment, you know, but how do we get the actual money into the hands and the exchange of the goods for the, you know, it's like we want to give you what you may need, but people may not see it as, you know, I mean, I guess the question I'm asking you is, how did you market your books? You know, what are some marketing strategies for self-published authors who don't have the backing?
I'm gonna have to charge you.
No, you gotta get your workshop. I
do consulting for this type of thing. But listen, in the beginning, as being a poet and traveling, of course, your name gets out there, right? Mm-hmm. But what you want to do is rule 101 of marketing. It is easier to promote to the same person. You know what I mean? If you already know me, I can say, hey, I got this book. You know me. I can promote right back to you when I get a new book and you'll buy, right? Mm-hmm. So it's all about, like, when I release a book, I have 200 or so people that's gonna buy it right off, even if I'm selling pre-orders, right? Because I know they know who I am already, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't let people leave. Number one, rule 101, if you're a self-published person and you're in their personal space and you sell to them, you don't just sell to them, you get their information.
Right.
You follow up with them, you keep their email. So when you get ready to release another project, you can they already know who you are.
Yeah.
So you walk right back to them. So you got sales right off the back, right? When I did my first novel, I got my whole family involved. I was like, listen, remember back in the day when we were selling those candies and those cookies in school? I need y'all to help me. I printed up a sheet, right? And was like, can you sell this to your friends and all of my cousins or whatever? I was like, can you buy 2 copies and you give one away? And some people said, hey, you can keep, just give me one and I'll just buy 2, right? So then I had a product that I could give away. Mm-hmm. Well, so when people say, I don't have $20, I only had 10, I say, that's cool. Give me your 10, because that's what that book's already paid for. You see what I'm saying? And then that person is saying, hey, she gave me 50% off. But I'm not letting you leave without getting your contact information. Hey, let me get your email, because when I have other stuff coming out and I want to hear, I tell people, email me, tell me how you like the book, what didn't you like, whatever. And I make sure they know what genre this is in. Hey, this is a book for you. This for grown folks. Don't let your kid read it. If you let your kid read it, it is your fault. Okay, this is for your child. You can have this too. And it's all about, nowadays, you can be social media famous, right?
Right.
You can do it yourself. So you need to, if you have a book that's coming out, or a project, or written work or songs or whatever, and you're not promoting it 6 months ahead of time, you're behind the curve. Mm-hmm. You already behind. You can't get the product and then try to promote it. That's not how it works. Right. You promote it soon. And I tell people, like, when I help them publish, I say, let's get your book cover done first, because we can promote with your book cover and say, coming in September. It's January, it's February. People, you have to create a buzz about it. And then I get people all the time I don't even have to pray for printing up front, because people pre-buy and then they forget. They was like, oh, I forgot about this book that was coming out. Yeah, now I'm happy. And you get other people to promote for you too. Hold that book up. You know what I'm saying? Hold your book up and say, I got this book situation. So those are some things you can do. I mean, get you some supporters, because this is what you have. You have fans. Wait, let me back up. You got family. You got fans. You got friends. Then you have supporters. Those are all different people. Some may overlap. Your family, you got some that'll support you with money, but some of them just want to say, hey, my cousin is the poet laureate. That's it. That's all they got for you. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to know who your supporters are. Who are your supporters and what are they supporting you with? Because I have some supporters, they don't buy anything, but they tell people, they support me by posting up my flyers on events that I'm having. That's support. It's recognizing who's what. And if you have, don't think that your family is going to be the person that gets you rich. It's not. Don't think your friends, the friends don't even have to support you. I tell my friends, you don't have to like my poetry. You don't have to come. That's not, that's not part of being a friend. You need supporters. That's what you need. And if nobody's supporting what you're doing, then maybe you're doing the wrong thing.
A lot of people have to learn that. I know I had to learn that. I had to learn, those, 3 or 4 people that you stated, the friends, the family, the supporters, and you should not, please don't get mad at the people who are simply family, simply friends, right? Because when you think about your warm market, because that's what that is, the people that whether it be friends, family, or whatever, you're thinking everybody, especially when you first start out, oh, I know I can tap into my auntie, my cousin, and what I've learned is a lot of those family and friends aren't going to be supporters until they see that you're serious, until they see that you're consistent with it, because those family members and those friends know you and they've seen you possibly jump from this, that, and the third. So now they're like, okay, and before I start posting and sharing and telling my colleagues and my coworkers about what you're doing, I want to make sure that you're going to stick with this and you're going to take it serious. So I had to learn that, because at first I was like, what in the world is this? Ain't nobody coming to my event. Right. You family, what's going on? And I don't know who told me, but they were like, you never know. Don't get mad and don't cut anybody off, because I then found that out of the blue, they'll donate.
Oh yeah.
It'll just all of a sudden click, and then you'll see them in the seat, or you'll see on Eventbrite your so-and-so's name come through as a ticket sale. Like, wow. Okay, that's good. That's good information. That's good. So I wanted to, how have you leveraged being the poet laureate? And I know that comes with, status. How has that, I guess, up your game, if you will? The opportunities that come your way with that name and that status?
Well, this is what I do know. People of color, they go on recommendations, right?
Okay.
So I can recommend your show just because I said it. People will say, hey, yeah, I would love to watch the show. I would want to be interviewed or whatever, right? But people that are not of color, they want a title.
Yeah.
And as we know, people of color, they want to bargain. The people that are not of color, they have the money, but they need the title. You know what I mean? And I realized that quickly. Like now, if I call a place and say, "Hey, I'm the poet laureate of Alexandria," they'll be like, "Okay, you want it? What you want to do?" I've been calling y'all for years. Listen, when I had been trying to get in the Alexandria newspaper for years. You understand what I'm saying? My events and things that I was doing, my assistant would send press releases to them, like, can y'all send somebody out or whatever? Never have they came. As soon as I got to be poet laureate, they emailed us to the same email that we've been emailing you for years. You understand what I'm saying? So now that I'm the poet laureate, I'm on the front page now of Alexandria. You know what I mean? But this is the same person. So sometimes you got to create a buzz. Like people already knew who I was. Like it's about you finding out what's going on in your city, you opening up the newspaper or looking online and finding out those things and putting yourself in those positions. So you're introducing yourself. So when they see you again, they're like, oh, I remember that name, especially a name like KaNikki. You know what I mean? But they're going to remember, you know, oh, I think I met her before. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's about creating a buzz around your name and what it is, you know, your organization or whatever it is that you're trying to promote. You know, tell people about it. So,
but I understand why. You know, I actually understand why, and I think I started to understand why when I started the Poet Life. So I'm no longer just Christoph Jenkins. I'm just no longer just a person. I am an establishment.
Right.
Other establishments want to work with other establishments because the question is, what can you do for me? Right? And the status, the name alone, Poet Laureate, speaks more than just KaNikki Jakarta. Right? And so it's almost like B2B, it's business to business, as opposed to B2C, business to customer. You're a business now, you're an establishment. So I understand it, you know, because connecting with you now has them connected to your network.
Yeah, that's true.
As opposed to just connected to your family. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I'm understanding that, not taking it to heart, because in order for, and I'll be completely transparent, in order for Poet Life Podcast to grow, it's important for us, for JRD and I, not to just talk to each other.
That's true.
You know, let's now, if we chose to do that, we could still grow and blow up, but it would take longer because all we have is our networks, and the word of mouth, it would be slower. But if I connect and have conversations with other people who have other networks, now we're connected to your network, your husband's network. Yes, so that's.
I was just having a conversation with my sister about that. I was like, everybody, you're gonna be used for something, right? You have to be used. But the thing about it is, you have to figure out when somebody's using you, what are you getting out of it? You understand what I'm saying? And I'm a person who thinks I don't care if it's 2 people that listens to this interview. It's 2 people I didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? So interviews, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll do these interviews because, you know, if you're using my name to, you know, help build a network. I mean, I do have a network of people, but it's also, like you said, connecting to your people too. And I don't care if it's 2 people. It's not about like the number of folks for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I know those 2 people know other people that I don't know. So that also helps, you know?
That's good. That's good.
With that being said, from your experience, you know, working with diverse writers and everything like that, I've read that you also were trying to find some workshops and writing classes, women's groups, and a lot of them, you know, didn't have the same kind of preferences or interests when it came to relationships. But now we're in a time where it's kind of like, you know, diverse is the new normal. You know, how have you been working to unite poetic voices of a diverse kind?
When I came to DC, I went to a lot of women's writers workshops, right? But all of the women writer workshops were for gay women writers. Anything that said woman, like if I went, I was the minority there, you know? So I said, well, where are the workshops that has, you know, the gay and the straight people? Where are the workshops that has the Black and the white and Latino and all? Where are these? It didn't exist. So I said, okay, I see I'm going to have to create it myself because I can't find that. I'm gonna have to create it. So 5 years ago, I said, I wrote on my vision boards. Vision boards are very important too. Vision boards are very important. You need that. You need to see that. But I wrote on my vision board, I'm going to have a diverse workshop with women writers ages 18 through 100, right? So I'm gonna invite these people in, and these people, I'm gonna create the platform, and these people are gonna come, and they did. So here we are, 5 years later. And I created it online at first, and my assistant said, "Why don't you do it in person?" And I said, "Do you think people want to come, out and do it?" She's like, "Yeah, let me call." Because she'll be on it. She was like, "Oh, there's a Barnes and Noble." She said, I sent her your press kit. She said, "You need a press kit too. You do need a press kit. You need that."
Yes.
Sending somebody a little bio, that does nothing. You need some photos. You need a press kit or one pager or something. You need that. Okay. But anyway,
thank you.
She called her. The lady was like, "Sure." She didn't even meet me. She was like, "Sure. What date does she want?" And I started it at Barnes and Nobles. I did it there for a year. And then I won a contest in Alexandria. One of the years that in 2016, when I applied to be the Poet Laureate and didn't get it, I also applied for a contest called Dashing Words. And it is a contest where you can write, they give you a criteria, but you can write, and if you win, your poem is on the buses and trolleys for April and May of that year. So I won that, and I went to the ceremony of the person who won Poet Laureate then. And they had me there to read the poem that I wrote in something else. So I went, I performed. I didn't just read. I performed.
Right.
And then the people at the Athenaeum, they reached out to me. They Googled me, and they reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to do something here at the Athenaeum? Do you want to do like a reading or open mic or a workshop or something?" I was like, "I want to do all of that." All of it. And let's start with a show. So I started with a show. It's called An Evening with KaNikki J. That was the first thing that I presented there. So it's just me reading, performing, telling stories, whatever. Just me. I invited everybody to come. People came. And then I went to them with a proposal and said, "Okay, so I'm leaving Barnes and Nobles and I want to do a workshop here." At first they were like, "Why is it just a women's workshop?" I say it's called Write Like a Woman. I don't know where y'all gonna get a man from, but y'all need to find y'all man. But I'm a woman, so it's called Write Like a Woman. So they said, "Well, we'll do 2 and see how it goes." And here we are, 5 years later. Well, 4 years later, and we're still there. So, and like I said,
this was before.
This is before the Poet Laureate.
Wow.
So I already had that, and then, of course, like I said, I wrote 18 through 100. Right? I think the oldest person I've had there has been 83. And it's amazing.
Nice.
Because you have young people speaking to the older people. You got the older people speaking to the younger. It's amazing. So, and then I watch, Beautiful. And then I see these connections being made and people going off, being friends with one another or doing events with one another. It's the connection. And I realized that one of my gifts in what I'm supposed to do is connect people to other people. Because I'm the one, I'm the talkative person, you've seen me, I'm very friendly, whatever, and I can introduce, and I said, "Oh, so you're a songwriter and she's a singer, y'all need to talk."
Nice.
So that's what I do. I just connect people to each other, and it comes back to me as blessings.
So you applied once or twice before and did not get the position of twice. Okay. So, and I'm glad you said that. I caught it because I thought you applied just one time and then you got it. So that means for 6 years, right? Because it's 3-year term.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's persistence. So what has made you so persistent, and what drew you to the Poet Laureate position?
Let me say, for this last term, I had told my brother when I didn't get it the second time, I said, "I'm not applying for Poet Laureate anymore."
Okay.
If I be the Poet Laureate of Alexandria, then they're gonna ask me to be the Poet Laureate. This is what I'm saying, right? I'm like, I'm never applying again. So because I was doing so much in the city, people, when it came, when the call for Poet Laureate came out, people were asking me, "Are you going to apply? Are you going to apply?" And I said, "I'll think about it." So I was telling my brother, so many people were asking me about whether or not I was going to apply. He said, "Well, you said if the people are going to ask you, the people are asking you, not the people on the board, but the people are asking you. This is what you said. So you should apply."
The most important people.
So I was like, okay, so in this, I looked at because this is the thing about it. They really don't tell you what the criteria is. You know, not like a job. The job says you need a bachelor's degree, you need this much experience, you need that. The Poet Laureate position does not say that. They say we have a call for Poet Laureate that represents the city. They want to know what that means to you and what you're going to bring to the city, not what we're asking you to do, because you are going to create this role for yourself and you are going to represent the community yourself, right? So I was like, okay, I'm the person who is doing a lot of things in the community. People already know who I am. I think I represent the city well. I represent Virginia everywhere I go, and Alabama. People know I'm from the South. And I'm already representing y'all. I already say when I get up, this is where I'm from, you know? So since I'm already doing it, I think I deserve the title too. So let me write that down.
There you go.
You know,
Write it down.
I wrote it in there. I represent Alexandria wherever I go. And I'm already doing these things in the city. Y'all already know who I am. Go ahead, please. Can I get the title? You know, it was kind of like that.
What part of the 757?
I lived in Norfolk and Virginia. I moved to Virginia Beach, and then I lived in Norfolk when I was there. I lived down there 5 years.
What do you know about Norfolk State? Be careful now.
I went to Norfolk State for 5 minutes.
Really?
I was like, yeah, for 5 minutes.
What year?
Really for 5 minutes. Like I didn't even finish out the semester. I was like, I don't know.
All right, stop there. What year was that?
What year was that? 1995.
Okay, got you. Okay, I was I got there in 2001. Okay. And finished off in 2006. Okay.
Gotcha.
All
I
right.
still like Norfolk State. Hey, I've done poetry there. So it's still
good. Cool. Sweet. Awesome. So this was awesome. We really appreciate you coming on, you know, and so you're not just a guest at the Poet Life podcast. We also want you to also come on and so this will drop on June 8th. And that's a Monday. We drop our episodes on Mondays. It's the episode 2. And the same week, June 12th, we want you also to come back and do a workshop with our Poet Lifers, is what we call our supporters. This is all in the realm of Poet Life University. We want to break down even further what you've been talking about, do a Q&A and allow people to ask you questions, you know, what it's been like, you know, how can I go to the next level with my art, my poetry, and that's going to be on a Friday, and that's called Networking with the Poet Life, featuring KaNikki Jakarta. So we're super excited about, you know, working with you, and I believe, you know, we'll be able to work with each other in other realms as well. How can we be of assistance to you? I always want to make sure I ask that question.
I reserve the right to answer this question at a later date.
Sure. Let's talk.
Listen,
definitely.
On air, this is recorded. Was that part recorded? Don't take that part out.
No, I got you. We're gonna leave it in there. I got you. Not a problem. I love it. That's good stuff. I like how you keep things business, right? And you keep it there. And that's where you should keep it, because and I'm sure you've been in these situations where, you know, you have friends that or colleagues or just people that know you that want you to do favors for them. And not to say that you would not do the favor for them, but at the same time, again, you keep it business and keep it professional, I should say.
Right.
I think that's very important.
If you don't have money, when you get money, you think of me again. Don't blow up. Don't listen.
Right.
Don't blow up. Don't listen. Don't be on HBO and don't come back and get. You understand what I'm saying? Don't get a Netflix special and we was on StreamYard and then you don't come back and get me for Netflix. You understand what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. Just don't forget about it. Go back and get me.
Yeah, definitely. I like that, and I think that's very important. No, we can't forget about you. This is good information. And I think a lot of people will see the value in the information that you provided, and especially when we get into the deep dive into the networking event. I think that's where they'll really be able to tie into what you're saying, because we can all understand and kind of relate to your process. I mean, you applied twice and you had to wait 3 years twice. Like I want to say most, I don't like being pessimistic. A lot of people would just have given up the first time or the second time.
Right.
So I commend you for continuing on and committing to what you wrote down.
Right. Because you have to participate in your own blessing. What are you gonna do to make this happen? Yeah. You know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about making your gift professional, right? You'll have someone that says, I want to do this full time. I want to do this professionally. And I'm sure the question has to come about where you say, okay, all right, do you have business cards? Mm-hmm. Do you have a website? Because you are already naming a few already. Press kit. And what are some other things that a poet, we're going to stay in this vein because we're the poet life. What are some other things that the poet, a new poet, or just a poet that wants to do this thing full time or just take it more serious?
Number one, do you have a plan?
That's
comes before a business card. And I make it a plan. I'll give you a flyer, but I don't give a business card to somebody that I'm not doing business with. Business cards are for business. If you get my business card, this is for you to get it. You can look me up on social media. You don't need a business card for that. If we have some business,
don't waste my cards.
Give me my card. This is what my business cards are, right? But what is your plan? You can't just say I'm gonna be a poet, and where are you going? You know what I mean? So unless you got home down first, you first get home together, right? Find out all the stuff that you can do locally, because when you start making moves outside of the city and the state, then that costs you money because you still have to get it. If you go for a show in California and that's paying you $500, that's a plane ticket, and then you still have to eat when you get there. You got to pay for your luggage. Why? Find you a $500 show locally. Get your city together first, right? And you need, I always say don't quit your day job first, right? When I left and my husband and I did a tour, I had all the bill money for a year. So I don't have to worry about bills now, so I can be creative. I can travel around. And, I also said, okay, during this travel time, I'm going to stay with some family and friends, right? So I'm going to make this a visit as well. So I'll have no hotel costs because I'm going to stay with my friend. And I'm going to cook for y'all when I'm there. So I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm not going to, because I can cook too. I can burn in the kitchen. I'm from the South, right? So listen, you have to have my plan was, and I always tell people, I bought our tickets for London in January for September. I remember I paid $916 for 2 round trip tickets to London because I planned. You have to have a plan. How much money is
What was in London?
What was in London?
Yes.
Poetry.
Okay, so that was an event that you got booked for?
We booked some shows in London.
Okay,
I also had a friend that lived in London. So guess what? I didn't have to pay any lodging, right? It's so much better now because you can use, social media for that or whatever. And if you get you some references. I use references. I get reference letters, old school reference letters, and let people know you did this for me, get some little law, whatever. But you have to have a plan, and you need money for, number one, how are you going to pay your bills? if this does not happen? What is your plan? And what are you trying to do with poetry? Or are you just trying to travel around with a book bag and do poetry and sell CDs and whatever they sell now? They'll sell CDs, books, or whatever.
Right.
So that's out, because how are you going to pay your bills? If this doesn't work out, how do you pay your bills? And then get a contract. Stop going on word of mouth. You know what I mean? Start getting money up front. Okay, you're going to pay me $500 for this show. I need $50 up front. Something. If the show gets canceled, then what? If the coronavirus happens, then what? You know what I'm saying? Man. So you have to think about your livelihood. What am I gonna eat while I'm gone? You know what I'm saying? Where am I gonna, where can I get the least amount of food, for the least amount of money? You have to figure all this out before. You need a plan. What is your plan, and what is your plan for what are you trying to do with your poetry? That's the thing. Because if you just want people to know you, you can stay in your city to do that. Right. But if your city does not have a platform and you are a host and you can build one, if you're not a host and you are a planner, you can get with a host, get somebody to host the show.
Partner with the host.
You know what I'm saying? Start something. Call the library if you don't have anything. Call your library. Libraries do things for free. Get to know, your city first. Because when you get out here and you can't pay the rent, where you gonna live? Get that together first. Learn how to save some money first. Now I'm at the point now where I don't. I was talking to my husband the other day because right after we did our tour, the recession happened. Okay, this is a whole nother story. So people would fly you out back in the day, right? Then they start saying if you can get here, we'll pay you, but we don't have money for flights. You know what I'm saying? So now this is a serious situation for somebody who does poetry for a living. Now what? What are you gonna do? You understand what I'm saying? So you have to plan. Like my mama say, if you plan to fail, I'm gonna say, what is it? If you plan to fail,
if you fail to plan, you failed.
Thank you.
You plan to fail. You plan to fail.
Yeah. And I don't know how I didn't remember that because she's been saying that my whole life. So this is why I'm a planner. You got to think about this. Let the people in the city know you first. If they don't know who you are, how are they gonna rep you? How are you gonna be on TV and they be like, she's from DC, she's from Virginia? How are they gonna know that if they don't know who you are? Right. Get your city together first. Go 1 hour, 2 hour out instead of trying to fly across the country and you don't have any money. That doesn't make no sense. That makes no sense.
I'm so glad I didn't end this podcast when I was going to. This is good because you went down a whole different lane, a whole nother lane, and that's the lane that we needed to go down because yes, faith is important. And listening to your higher power, listening to God, and knowing that He said, yes, you will do this for a living. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily He said now.
Right.
Right. We hear that He said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You just don't understand. Right. And then they take the leap and there's no parachute. And then you're like, God, I thought you said, I did say it, but I didn't say now. No. Okay, we're not gonna preach. But that's good. I'm glad you brought that up because it's very important and people need to hear that. Because you said two things: make sure that you have some income coming in, but also when you take that major leap, also make sure that you have some money saved for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. You said you had a whole year's worth. That's heavy. That's huge. That's major. That frees you up to be creative. Mm-hmm. Right? You're not focusing on the bills you got to pay. And because when I tell you, and I'm sure that stunts your creativity because that's all you can think about is rent, mortgage, and utilities.
Right.
And don't have kids. Mess around, have kids too.
Okay.
Right. And but and you came back to how you let poetry work for you. And that's what you're saying right here. You're leveraging your family members in other states and cities and countries too, where you're not spending all your money on a hotel, right, trying to live it up and live it big, and you're creating other opportunities with the one opportunity that you may have. You've created another 5-6 opportunities as well with references. Right. Because when we think references, we think about 9-to-5 jobs. We've always been told never leave your 9-to-5 job without a reference.
Right.
No one has ever said, I don't say ever, but no one has said to most artists, don't leave that event without a reference. Mm-hmm. A testimonial. That's the proof that you are that good or that level of an artist. And those are screenshots and paragraphs that you can use on your website, right, that prove that you're good at what you do, because that's what people want to know, and this is awesome, man. I can't wait to break bread with you with the Poet Lifers in our workshop. Folks, make sure you follow us on the Poet Life and Poet Life podcast. Please follow KaNikki J. That is, let me drop this down real quick so they can see your Instagram handle. Is that your Twitter as well?
It's just KaNikki J.
Or do you have a KaNikki J? Okay, cool.
It's KaNikki J everywhere except Instagram. It's KaNikki_J.
Is that an underscore between?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. J. Rod D, jump in if you have something before we.
No, I just want to say I appreciate all the jewels. Like I'm sitting there soaking everything in addition to trying to think of some good questions. But it's like, man, the content is good enough.
Just let her go. So, just let her flow.
Young fool. I'm full.
I'm full.
Space lets you flow. Like I know it's probably a lot more, and she will get into that when we get to the workshop. But for right now, I definitely appreciate you being with us and sharing your wisdom, sharing your insight and your experiences with us. And for those who are looking to get to your level, you know what I mean? Like, just thank you for being someone that can share, you know what I mean, and not be like, nah, it's just me, only me.
Oh, no, it's not.
No successor, you know. But
you're not just me. Definitely not just me.
Yeah. So I appreciate that supremely.
Well, you know what? Thank you guys for having me on. I've been following you for years. I've been hashtagging Poet Life forever. You can look back and find, plenty of hashtags that I've, Mm-hmm. So I definitely, been a supporter of look over here, type of poet. So I appreciate you. I'm very honored to be here, and I appreciate the interview.
Definitely.
Yes, this was one for the books. I'm so excited I want to drop it. I want to drop this episode soon, man. June 8th cannot come fast enough, man. I can't wait for the reactions and the comments, and the questions that we can, have answers to them. And I just think this will simply grow into something more with our connection with you. And your connection with us as well, because again, like you said, it's all about what can you do for me, what can I do for you, and you have that with us. So it's nothing. Just like I inboxed you on Facebook, and because I've been following you as well, you and your husband, right? And now that we have a platform to bring you on to. This episode 2, I said I have to have her on to share that journey, that story, and the definition of Poet Laureate. Man, I just like continuing to talk, but we're going to do that on the network. On the networking event, the workshop. Everybody, thank you so much for checking us out, the Poet Life Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere on the internet, and subscribe to our YouTube page, Poet Life TV, and we look forward to what we have to come. We have an awesome guest the following week as well, and we just hope you stick with us. We plan on uplifting the poetry community and building the poetry industry, brick by brick. Jay Ryder, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
KaNikki, you good?
I'm great.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We're going to end it off right here. This was an awesome night. You all have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right now.
Introducing the Poet Life Podcast. Go check it out today on your favorite platforms, including iTunes, Apple Music, and the website, thepoetlife.com.